June 4th, 1942. Dawn breaks over the Pacific. 108 Japanese aircraft launch, ready to decide the fate of the world. But today, history has been diverted by an entity that should not exist. The supercarrier USS Gerald R. Ford, a nuclear marvel from the future, pitted against an empire at its peak. Can the legendary Akagi or Kaga even stand a chance against eyes that see 350 miles and weapons from another century? Midway is no longer a battle. It's an execution from the void. As the first sun rays pierce the salt mist, Admiral Nagumo is certain of a crushing victory. He believes Midway is just a chess piece, a tiny island about to be swept off the board by the mighty Kido Butai, but history isn't following the textbooks. Beside a battered Yorktown, a massive mechanical ghost looms. It's 337 meters long, with 2 nuclear reactors humming in terrifying silence. The USS Gerald R. Ford stands like a god from the future, defying every physical law of 1942. There's no black smoke, no roar of piston engines. This ship is unnervingly quiet. We haven't just changed a fleet. We've changed one single variable on the strategic board. Can the firepower of one era crush an entire old world? On one side, samurai with nerves of steel and agile Zero fighters. On the other, algorithms and missiles guided with centimeter precision. What happens in the next 12 hours won't be a clash of generals' wits, but a brutal test of technology. The most terrifying part isn't the bombs. It's that the men across the water are still smiling, completely unaware they were seen before their planes even left the flight deck. Imagine a city of steel, 100,000 tons. 2 A-1B nuclear reactors providing 20 years of power without refueling. This is the USS Gerald R. Ford, a reality far beyond any naval definition of 1942, while the most advanced radar at Midway had a meager 90-mile range, choked with noise. The Ford's all-seeing eye, the E-2D Hakai, expands that vision to over 350 miles. It covers the entire war zone in sharp digital clarity. On its deck, instead of thin-skinned propeller planes, sits a wing of stealth E-5CS, Super Hornets, and the electronic monster, the EA-18G Growler. A single modern jet carrying 17,000 pounds of ordnance equals the strike power of 14 SPD Dauntless dive bombers combined. To even get close, the enemy would have to breach a wall of tungsten built by the Phalanx system, Sea Sparrow, and Ram missiles, where every incoming object is tracked and destroyed automatically. Yet this overwhelming superiority creates a deadly paradox, the friction of eras. Ford sees every move the Japanese fleet makes, but it can't transmit that data directly to its allies like the Enterprise or Yorktown. There's no Link 16, no satellites. Its high-tech tactical orders must be back-translated into primitive HF radio, signal lamps, or even Morse code. You possess an eye that sees the future from hundreds of miles away, but if you can't communicate that vision smoothly to your comrades, that eye becomes a curse of isolation on the vast ocean. What happens when a god is forced to speak in whispers? The outcome of Midway has just become the most insane scenario in naval history. Subscribe now to follow this epic what-if and find out. Thanks for watching. Do not mistake Admiral Nagumo's fleet for an easy target. This was Kido Butai. In 1942, they were the most powerful carrier task force on the planet. A legendary quartet, Akagi, Kaga, Soryu, and Hiryu. These were the reapers who dropped thunder on Pearl Harbor, carrying the pride of an empire at its peak. On their decks sat 248 aircraft, flown by Japan's finest pilots, men hardened by brutal training, masters of the nimble Zero fighter and the deadly Val and Kate bombers. Behind them stood a colossal fleet of over 100 warships. They had thick combat experience, an unyielding will, and absolute confidence in victory. Yet their tragedy lay in their time. They fought in an era dependent on human senses. With crude, almost useless radar, every battle was fought with the naked eye, through binoculars. They could only react when a target was visible, at a maximum of 25 miles, a distance that means nothing against ghosts from the future. Nagumo and his pilots were stepping into a fight to the death, unaware they were confronting an enemy for whom seeing was no longer a human limit. At 5:30 a.m., 230 miles from Midway, 108 Japanese aircraft roar from their decks, certain of a surprise attack. They have no idea they've already been seen. Inside the quiet, air-conditioned blue light of the USS Gerald R. Ford's command center, blips dance across advanced radar screens. Sophisticated computers identify enemy altitude, speed, and heading with cold precision. The Ford tracks this attack better than the Japanese commanders themselves. By 6 a.m., Super Hornets launch, climbing to 40,000 feet, a death zone for 1942 technology, where enemy pilots would black out from lack of oxygen. But then, a moment of friction. A communications officer on the Ford tries to relay coordinates, but the frequencies are mismatched. Modern terms like intercept vector baffle the World War II officers. For one heartbeat, a misunderstood command nearly triggers panic before it's corrected with signal lamps and old-school radio. This isn't just a battle between machines. It's a clash between two worlds. At 6:45 a.m., the first shot of a new era is fired from a distance the eye cannot see. Abrams missiles tear through the sky at supersonic speeds. For the Japanese pilots, it's an inexplicable nightmare. No warning, no enemy in sight, only long white trails across the blue, like the brush strokes of a reaper. Suddenly, the plane beside them explodes into a fireball, then another. They look up, searching, but see only the vast, silent void. Panic spreads. These elite pilots perform masterful roles, but evasion is futile. The missiles adjust their path, locking on from 30 miles away with calculated cruelty. It's systematic destruction. But even with godlike tech, death is still present. A Super Hornet, pursuing too closely, enters the flak zone of the Japanese escorts. Crude shrapnel tears at its $1 million fuselage. The pilot pulls back, escaping by a thread. A tense silence fills the Ford's command center, a stark reminder that war is always dangerous. As the surviving Japanese planes try to call for backup, they discover a more terrifying truth. Their radios are dying in a scream of electronic static. They are utterly, completely alone. If you enjoy these speculative history scenarios, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more. Thanks for watching. The Japanese commanders are screaming into their radios, but only haunting static and terrifying silence answer back. The EA-1H Growler has arrived, screaming across every frequency, turning a proud aerial formation into deaf and blind targets. Despair deepens as F-35CS glide past at 15,000 feet like ghosts in the sky. For the first time, Japanese pilots see what is slaughtering them, an aerodynamic shape that exists in no identification manual they have. At sea level, torpedo bombers hug the waves, only to be instantly shredded by tungsten streams from the Phalanx CIWS, which tears their planes apart like paper. Dive bombers are intercepted by Sea Sparrow missiles long before they even reach their drop points. It's 8 a.m., and Midway is almost untouched. On the flagship Akagi, Admiral Nagumo is paralyzed, listening to reports of an invisible force with godlike power. To him, this isn't war. It's a horrifying fairy tale. Nagumo stands on the bridge of the Akagi, gripping the rail. His surviving pilots are babbling, describing steel demons too fast for the human eye, of comrades exploding with no enemy in sight. It sounds like a collective hallucination. But pride, that fatal flaw, demands a response. Nagumo orders a second wave of 175 aircraft to launch. They fly straight into a death trap. High above, where their planes can never reach, nests of Super Hornets are waiting. As the last of the Japanese air wing is swatted from the sky, the USS Gerald R switches to total offense. 30 Super Hornets launch, armed with Harpoon anti-ship missiles and 2,000-pound guided bombs. They are here to break the laws of history. Flying high above the chaos, an E-2 Hawkeye surveillance plane locks the coordinates of the 4 biggest targets in the Japanese fleet. This isn't the dogfighting of old. This is a new kind of war, a war of pure science, data, angles, and timing. The pilots are just executing technical steps. The rest is left to algorithms precise down to the millimeter. The harpoons drop, hugging the waves, skimming the crests like razors aimed at the fleet's heart. 50 feet above the water, flying at 500 miles per hour. The Akagi, the very symbol of the Imperial Navy's might, is fumbling to prepare for a war it lost before the first shot was even fired. They don't even see what's coming. They don't have time to feel fear. A horrific explosion rips through the Akagi's hull, detonating inside a hangar packed with fuel and armed torpedo bombers. A floating hell rises from the ocean. The Kaga takes hit after hit, turning into a glowing, twisted mass of steel. The Soryu tries to flee, but a 1942 warship can't outrun a modern jet. Laser-guided bombs turn the Hiryu's flight deck into a furnace, incinerating the last shred of hope. In less than 20 minutes, 4 prides of the Imperial Japanese Navy are burning, sinking, or paralyzed. Midway is no longer a turning point. It's an extinction event. The Americans suffer almost no losses. The Yorktown is untouched. The pilots on the Enterprise and Hornet never even start their engines. They just stand on their decks, watching the future do their work for them, a mix of shock and awe on their faces. But on the bridge of the ford, there is no cheering. Modern sailors look down at the oil-slicked sea and the ancient wrecks, realizing they've just erased a chapter of history. They are the winners, but they are also permanent exiles of time, lost in a past they accidentally destroyed. The greatest death that day wasn't the ships, but the very faith in an era. And this mysterious ship, this ghost from the future, will forever be remembered as the Phantom of Midway. If you find what-if scenarios like this fascinating, subscribe to our channel to explore more shocking historical paradoxes. Thanks for watching.